in the first reading this night we had a verse which sometimes one finds chiseled either on tombs or in areas linked with tombs. Blessed henceforth are the dead who die in the Lord. They will surely rest from their toils, for their works go with them. Those of you who would be into history will know that this question of merit was one of the things that divided Christendom around the period of the Lutheran rebellion. The Council of Trent analysed the various factors involved and indicated that there has to be this element of collaboration. Now, even that comes from grace. God always has the first move, but there has to be a genuine saying yes to that first move. The Protestant position had gone to an extreme of indicating that it was enough to have faith, that it was all done for us. True, it is done for us. But the Lord actually does demand concrete collaboration. This question of works, then, is linked with the notion of merit. When it comes to totting up things, we can't exactly know how it works, but we can, in miniature, do something of it ourselves. I mean on a daily basis. It is part of our spirituality that at the end of the day, whether one is using the prayer of the church, Compline, night prayer, or one's own private devotions, one does look back over the day. And if that is happening, also one will have the instinct to use frequent confession, the which will be much easier if those daily examinations have happened, because spontaneously, rather like corks, the sins will come straight away to the surface, because we have thought about them and regretted them on a daily basis. If, on the other hand, one doesn't go for a long time to confession, what will one find? One hasn't got much to confess, because the soul has become less delicate and it doesn't react anymore to the apparently little things. But these little things will be precisely the surprises that await us when our copybook is opened, and in that case, after the last breath. For good or for bad, our works follow us, our moments are writ, and they reappear when we have snuffed it out. We see things, big, strong things, standing before our eyes, glaring at us, things that we'd quite forgotten. But they were there, and therefore they're in history. And it appears that the soul sees it all. You may, perhaps, on your travels, have come across somebody here or there who was involved in some near-death experience. Both before an accident, when one thinks one is dying, and afterwards, if one does go into clinical death, either in that dramatic way or in an operating theatre, the soul does begin to see things very clearly. And those who have a prolonged near-death experience, and who actually do die, do start to experience their judgment. They see themselves clearly, and they also, if the thing goes on long enough, become aware that they are being judged. And those who have had a prolonged experience of that nature and have come back have given us testimony, and quite a few of them go in this vein. Things which they had quite forgotten appear for what they are. Actually, that can work both ways. They can be pleasantly surprised that even if they weren't into formal prayer as we know it, that the Lord was very much taking into account acts of genuine goodness and was trying to use them. Because when that happens, there is a tendency to say yes to grace as it is understood. And remember, when it comes to the crunch, there's not all that much that they can claim if they've not been praying. And God is doing all He possibly can to keep them out of the other place and to let them only have purification. Because God has created these immortal souls and can't bear the thought that one will be lost to bad company and pain forever. Nor can we bear it if we think about it. It's the most atrocious thing imaginable. And so God is doing His level best to find some chink and to come into that in such a way that the merit of Calvary can also reach them. And in that way they're pulling precisely on the fact that it's done for us. Because without Calvary, none of us can get there. But the other one too works, and that's where I want to pause for a few seconds. The bad things, they also follow us. We have in our system, do we not, a kind of chemical reaction when we do something bad. It's actually the basis of modern scientific research with regard to detecting things like lies. People now can be exposed to scientific lie detection, and it actually is quite accurate, because the body can't quite make abstraction of what's going on inside it when it tells a lie. There's something in our being which reacts against it. So it's interesting that that is actually a scientifically registrable factor. What does it mean? It means that we have, in common with all our brethren on this planet, an interior system which is planted there by the author of goodness. And C.S. Lewis actually uses this as another proof of the existence of God. That if one goes to any human culture, one finds certain things working in the depths of the psyche. A man, a woman knows deep down when that person is doing wrong and can't get away from it. It's written there by the supreme lawgiver. So we have no excuse. If one observes what's going on quite often, it is a process after childhood of becoming more and more callous and switching off from the functionings of conscience. And so what happens is this: if one looks at people out there in the world, after a while they are no longer hearing their conscience. And what is happening is this: they neither can face their conscience nor their own selves. And so they'll obliterate the whole field of the interior life by noise. Noise is the great ally of Satan. It makes it impossible to hear that functioning which is for our good. Also, out there, if they're exposed sufficiently to conditioning, they will accept a norm which is also of satanic origin. So to choose freely to spend one's time on this time on earth just taking in what's out there is to also take on board the inevitable consequences. That our copybook will not be full of ticks. The pages will be blotched. The time will be in some way blighted by absence from ourselves and absence from contact with the Supreme Lawgiver. We will be like those out there. And if Christians get to that point, it's not good. Too much of the same thing is actually ruining the soul of this land, once so Christian. There's not all that much difference sometimes between those who go to church and those who don't. What's wrong? I just conclude. In our own life, we need, before we breathe our last, to realize that this question of the use of time is something hugely important. The quality of one day depends on our interiority. And if we have none, then we'll face the consequences, and for the first time we have no distraction, and we only have interiority left, but poor quality, because our works will not be there to follow us.